Join your host, Maddie Roche, as she brings you into a community of fee-only financial advisors who are successfully building profitable businesses that serve the next generation of clients. Learn from innovative advisors whose unique stories will inspire you to dream big and take action on your goals. Are you ready to live your best life and help your clients live theirs? Then you're in the right place.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm Maddie Roche, your host. I'm excited to have XYPN member Tyler Landis, owner of Tandem Financial Guidance, a fee-only firm in Kansas City, Missouri, on the show today. Tyler has a really unique experience building his firm. Having graduated from a financial planning program, he interviewed and became employed at a local fee-only firm in Missouri where he climbed the ranks from junior planner to planner. And although he loved his experience, he always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So in 2014, Tyler began exploring options. And in April of the same year, Tyler became a founding member of XY Planning Network and joined the then group of 30 financial advisors and business owners and started to put the pieces together on how to build his own firm. Being a planner, however, Tyler wanted to launch and run his firm while remaining cash flow positive. So unlike a lot of advisors, Tyler took a part-time job to make the dollars work. A few years ago, he actually started working full-time at Ziders, serving and supporting service members while continuing to serve his own 20 clients at Tandem. Tyler and I talk a lot about why he chose to build his business on a part-time basis up until now, and discusses how he could have never done this without learning from and leaning into his network. Tyler gives some really impressive perspective about the power of a study group, battling the imposter syndrome, and most importantly, building a firm as a young advisor. If you're interested in learning from someone who did it differently, this episode is for you. Avocado toast, selfies, a mountain of student loan debt. Gen Y is anything but traditional, and with over 75 million people, it's a population you don't want to ignore. Learn more about how to serve this unique population in our guide called Attract and Profitably Serve Millennial Clients in Your RIA. Discover 3 key ways to tap into the millennial market and 6 things that they want from their financial advisor. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/millennials for your free copy. You can find any of the resources we mentioned during this episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/260. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN radio listeners. It's a community of advisors that we've all been looking for, that's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here's my interview with Tyler. Hey, Tyler, welcome to XYPN Radio.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. I am honored to be interviewing you after 5.5 years of knowing you, I think is what we're sitting at. Tyler, you've got such an awesome background and experience and real experience here at XYPN as a member. I just can't wait to dive in. So I'll let you do the honors per usual. Go ahead and introduce yourself and your firm to our listeners.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Tyler Landis. My firm is Tandem Financial Guidance, and I'm in Kansas City, Missouri.
Awesome. And what are some of the quick stats about your firm?
Yeah, sure. So I am a solo shop, I guess, solopreneur, mostly working from home. Have a co-working space where I can meet clients in person, but also do a lot of virtual meetings. Servicing about 20 clients, 20 households on at different levels of service, and more of a lifestyle practice at this point. So it allows me to kind of have ultimate flexibility with family time and balancing that with work, and just looking to grow from there.
Awesome. So much to dig into and talk about. Let's go back in time. I'm always interested to learn about people's entry into this career. A lot of us are career changers coming into this industry. I think you have a pretty unique background. Go ahead and tell the listeners about kind of post-college. What was your experience?
Yeah, so I didn't set out to be a financial planner initially. Like I always kind of wanted to be in business because that's kind of what I thought where success and financial success, I guess, came from, just seeing other people around me just in business generally. So I went to college as a finance major and didn't really know where that would lead me, but kind of got, wasn't fully bought into that and started looking around at different majors and ended up at the financial planning school at the University of Missouri. So my degree's in financial planning, and from there moved back home to Kansas City and got a job with a fee-only firm in Overland Park, just a suburb here, and was there for about 5 years. Started as a financial associate, doing trading and sending follow-up notes and that sort of thing, handling client issues, and grew from there into kind of more of a junior planner, junior advisor type role. And by the end there, I was handling most of our kind of hourly business. They were a fee-only shop, like I said, mostly operating on retainer, but with some hourly business as well. So that was kind of my role there by the time 2015 rolled around. And, then we met and I did a career change and started Tandem at that point.
Awesome. Wow, you've really had kind of that traditional growth trajectory that we hear a lot about within this industry. And what's so neat is that you really started in that fee-only space.
Right.
I'm wondering, Tyler, in college, not all universities have financial planning programs. Did you graduate with your CFP from that program, or was that part of the curriculum?
It was, yeah. So shortly thereafter, sat for the CFP exam in, I guess, probably June of 2010. So yeah, I mean, at least locally here, maybe we're spoiled because the University of Missouri, as well as K-State, is a big financial planning program. Texas Tech obviously is a big one. So Mizzou is really right in that wheelhouse with regards to CFP centered education. So I did come out with all of my courses completed and ready to sit for the exam. I just had to study my butt off for a while there and get ready for it.
Wow. I wonder what it would be like to be a college graduate with that information. What a different perspective you would take.
Yeah, I always tell people, I mean, this is true of any CFP would probably say this, but more about the nuts and bolts, the book knowledge of financial planning the morning that you sit for the exam than you ever will. And beyond that, it's just knowing where to look for the information when you need it. So Mizzou prepared me for, as much as they could for, sitting for the exam. And I, crammed with my brother-in-law is also a CFP, and we're both in the program there. So had a study buddy and got through it and encouraged each other, and we both passed on that first try. So we were lucky.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
What kind of support did Mizzou give you in terms of becoming employed after graduation? Were there pipelines into the big broker dealers or anything like that?
A little bit. So, I mean, this was back in 2010, and I know that doesn't seem like that long ago to me, but it was still, I think, a different time than now in terms of there weren't as many opportunities for young salaried associates coming out of college to get a job, where they made a salary. A lot of it was going to the insurance companies or the brokerage, wirehouses and getting a commission job, or maybe there was a salary draw that, you had to earn your way through. So yeah, I mean, there were job fairs and recruiting from any number of, financial planners and brokers, but I kind of got the sense, having gone through that process, that fee only is where I wanted to land. And I just lucked out that a small solopreneur 5 years later was growing here in Kansas City and was hiring. And I was the third full-time employee there. So really kind of entered the industry and cut my teeth at a small planning focused fee only financial planning firm. So
yeah, very, very lucky. And what a great experience. I'm wondering, when you were in your financial planning program, was there a lot of education around the options and what fee only meant versus not? I mean, was that a real conversation that people were having, or was this something that you kind of just caught onto and pursued yourself?
I mean, a little bit. I don't think the program was really biased one way or another. I mean, we had a lot of support from some, insurance companies and different people who were vested in our program and trying to support financial planning and what the school was doing. So I don't know that I didn't feel swayed one way or another by maybe the education itself, but definitely among the students, everybody's kind of talking about, their experiences with different recruiters and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, I definitely naturally am not pulled in the direction of sales. So that was a pretty easy decision for me to look for a role where I could come in and learn under somebody who was doing it the right way.
Yeah. And what was your experience becoming employed there? Was it an application process, or was this a networking connection you had made?
Yeah, I think this one actually, that firm had put a listing up on the Financial Planning Association website, like our local chapter, and I think I found it there. And there were maybe, I think, one or two places that I applied and had a really good interview with the people there. And yeah, that was it.
And what was your work as a junior associate? And was there a lot of client relationship at that point, or were you primarily kind of para planning in the background?
Yeah, so the way we had it set up, there was one full-time advisor at that point, the owner, the founder of the company. There
Mm.
was a full-time paraplanner who kind of teed up the meetings, and then my role was to come in on the back end of the meeting and tear it all down again. So send follow up with the clients
Hmm.
on their to-dos, make sure that their accounts were rebalanced in the ways that were discussed, make sure any of the other planning recommendations carried through. So I wasn't doing a lot of plan building. It was a lot more client service, at least when I started. Yeah, and even like the financial planning software and especially like account rebalancing software um, back then 10 years ago was not really where it is today. So I was doing
Mm.
a lot of manual trade proposals on a spreadsheet. I'd update
Hmm.
all of the account balances and map out the trades and have them approved by the planner, and then trade them. So very manual process for sure.
Yeah. I appreciate this perspective, and I think it's very helpful for our listeners to hear that there are positions within these small firms that can be created, both at your initiative, but also at the initiative of the owner. And then also on the other side, that so many of our XYPN members and advisors are running solo practices similar to you, where you may one day want a little Tyler Landis to show up at your office and say that he's for hire and ready to help you build your business. So how did the firm grow while you were there? Obviously, you moved up, but did it expand? Did it change at all?
Yeah, I mean, we moved from a small office behind the elevator bank, like almost like a broom closet. It was two or three offices, a waiting, reception area, and a small kitchenette, into a larger space where we could accommodate more staff and more advisors. I think, like I said, I was the third full timer, and there were one or two part timers at that point as well, helping with marketing and scheduling. And then by the time I left, I think there might have been five or six full timers, and they've definitely kept growing since I left.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that departure and your decision to go out on your own, because it was only at that firm that you spent time before you launched your own firm, right?
Correct. Yeah.
What went into that decision?
Yeah. So I really do feel fortunate to have started where I did.
Hmm.
I believe that I worked under people who served clients the right way, who had a planning first approach, who really cared about the successes and struggles of their clients. And so it was a really hard decision, honestly. I could have stayed there and made a very happy career. There was just something in me knew that if I didn't try entrepreneurship at some level, that I would regret it. And that was 20, early to mid 2014 when I started having those sort
Wow.
of thoughts about like maybe now is kind of the right time. It was also I was starting to be expected to bring in business, and so it was kind of, do I, if I'm going to go out and hunt, for lack of a better word, should I do it here, or is now the right time to go do my own thing and try and build something um, that I can be, proud of, and that's built the way that I would want to do it. And so I ended up doing that. Yeah, 2014, kind of mid 2014 is around when XY Planning, I think, launched as well. And so,
Mhm.
um, I read a couple blog posts by some famous XY Planning members. Now, I think probably 60%, 80%, 90% of members now have probably read those blogs by Sophia and
Mhm.
Alan, about starting your own planning firm with $10,000. And so I had $10,000 that I had contributed into a Roth IRA, my Roth IRA basis that I was able to pull back out. And I knew I had $10,000 available that I could throw in a business account and hit the road. And so, there was definitely some you don't know what you don't know, or you're some naivety a little bit about making it happen. But it was like, hey, these blogs said I could do it, so surely I can. And anyway, yeah, so I really went back and forth with the firm owner that I was working under, and he was very open with the conversation about, could you satisfy this need to serve a different type of client? I wanted to work with younger families, people who looked, more like me in terms of age and stage of life. Not that we didn't have those clients at that firm, but it was, it skewed a little bit older, a little closer to retirement, a little higher net worth. And so, yeah, we had those conversations. Is this something that I can build and satisfy that need or that want internally? Or, does it make sense for me to go out and try my own thing? And kind of went back and forth on that. And he was, they were open to accommodating that within the firm. But ultimately we decided to part ways. So,
wow.
I stayed through the end of that year. Through the end of 2014, kind of helped handle the year-end wrap up, year-end contributions, all that kind of stuff. And then January 1, 2015, I was, celebrating the new year and sitting in my bedroom at my desk, ready to start Tandem, although I didn't know what it was going to be called, didn't have an email address, didn't have a phone number, didn't have a website, but I was ready to make it happen.
What an incredible story. I've heard from many different members that it sometimes takes the wrong employment situation to trigger them to want to start a firm. But on your end, it really feels like you wanted to be an entrepreneur really since the beginning. And I think that's really what differentiates a lot of our kind of original and founding members at XYPN with some of the members that are joining today. A lot of the folks that join today will tell me that they never dreamed of being an entrepreneur until a platform like XYPN existed. Whereas folks 6 years ago in our founding group are very much driven to be entrepreneurs because that's what they wanted to do. Could you talk a little bit more about that, about where that drive comes from? I love this idea that you wanted to work with people similar to you, but what is it about wanting to run your own business that was so attractive to you?
Yeah, so I don't know. There wasn't really any one thing. I grew up, going to take your kids to work day, with my mom, and she was an administrative assistant to the CEO of this is actually a financial firm here in Kansas City. And I'd play in the boardroom. I'd sit in the CEO's chair at his desk, and that was kind of what the idea that I had of what I wanted for my life, because that was he had nice cars and everything, right? So when I went to college, I wanted to go into finance, but it was really, by the time I got there, more about designing the life that I wanted to live more than it was the money or the things. And then even within my family, I didn't realize this at the time, but looking back on some of my family members and their entrepreneurial pursuits, I didn't realize how much there really was around. So my grandfather was a home builder, designed and built custom homes. My dad was a musician, so a self-employed musician trying to make it big, right? My aunt owned and operated a dance studio.
Wow.
So just several things that maybe had some influence that you can make a career that you want, but I don't think I realized, and maybe still don't, the impact that might have had.
Totally. It took me to get into XYPN before I ever realized, wow, I have a lot more agency than I thought I did in terms of being able to go out and create something that I want to create. And now I'm still an employee, but I'm working with so many of you that really have this spark inside of them that is just so inspiring. You were an XYPN founding member, Tyler, and that means that you get a neat XYPN red t-shirt at our conferences and things like that. But really, you have been with XYPN since the early days. Yes. And I'm wondering, you had kind of a unique experience in that you didn't come in with a firm. You didn't come in launching immediately. Talk to us about those first few months of joining this network when it really was only 30 of you.
Yeah, so I was joking here. I actually have the red, the limited edition, special limited red founding member T-shirt here. I tried to wear it for today's call, but 5 years and almost 2 kids later, it doesn't fit quite the same as it used to. But yeah, I mean that was a crazy year for me. 2014, toward the end of 2014, I was I was quitting my job and I got engaged right around the same
Mm.
time. And then 2015, started my own business, got married, bought our first house. I don't, my wife was crazy enough to stick with me through all of that. I mean, she kind of knew what I had in mind, but I don't know if she realized fully what we were getting into.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the network at that point in time, I think, I don't know exactly what the numbers were, 30 or so founding members maybe. And it was a really small group that's
Mhm.
obviously now grown into a very large group. But everyone who was in XY at that point in time um, was, I mean, and they still are very supportive, but it was small enough that I knew everybody. I knew
Yeah.
there was this group of people that were all trying to do the same thing for a lot of times the same reasons, and so that was very easy to feel supported and encouraged that we could make it happen. And I think that still exists today in the network. It's just a little bit different, as
Mhm.
now I don't know, they're like 1,000 members or something.
Yeah.
But you guys have done a good job at with launcher groups and finding your mastermind and that sort of thing. Trying to make, it's just like going to college, right? You have to find where you fit to make
Yep.
this big campus seem smaller. Same thing, I think, with the network. And so, I found a lot of support early on. Now I get that support through a mastermind group that I met for the most part through XY Planning Network, and we meet every Tuesday and have for I don't several years now.
Yeah.
So shout out to Mosaic Mastermind. Um,
Oh,
but yeah, I mean, it's just the more, especially for a solopreneur, the more you can find that community or sense of community. Like the biggest, the biggest change was not having any coworkers, and so
mm,
XY Planning Network, my mastermind group, my involvement with the local FPA chapter. There's just so many ways you can replace some of that camaraderie while not having anyone sitting down the hall from you.
mm. Absolutely. And I hear members all the time talk about the power of having someone on the other end of the call, whether it be a Zoom call or a phone call or even just an email that just gets it,
Yeah.
can really save people. It keeps people playing the game, but it also keeps them motivated and bought into this larger purpose that I think we're all in this for. I really enjoyed learning, Tyler, kind of in hindsight, what your experience at joining the network early on was, in terms of you did not launch immediately, and you spent
Oh,
time kind
sure.
of just listening and absorbing. And not everyone does that when they join XYPN. A lot of people come in, they're gunning for that initial registration process. But could you shine some light on your intentionality behind joining the network and using it before you launched your firm?
Sure. Yeah. I think it was more needing to convince myself or, build up the courage, whatever, that I could do it.
Mm,
I've always been someone who's like willing to try new things, but I also want to probably over research and overthink um, and make sure I know where I'm going to land before I jump, sort of a thing. So, yeah, I joined XY probably, I mean, I don't know what point of 2014, 6 to 8 months,
mhm.
April or something like that, 2014, and didn't really launch my own firm, like I said, until January of 2015. I
Wow.
stayed at the firm that I was with through the end of that year. But at that point, again, it was more of an exploratory thing. I didn't know that I wanted or needed to go out of my, but through joining a little early and, there was some sunk cost to that, right? There was membership fees and things that I didn't need to incur yet. But I mean, if I hadn't joined when I did, um, I might not have convinced myself to do it.
Mm, great advice. Great
Yeah.
advice. We encourage folks that are not yet members to join the network and spend a couple months just learning what the culture is, what the attitude is of our fellow advisors in this community, and kind of see and plan and be intentional about what your next moves are. You came into this, Tyler, with some real personal goals, and they're quite admirable. Would you mind sharing with the listeners kind of your personal journey through launching your firm and why you were so intentional with the decisions you made?
Yeah, sure. So, I knew going into it that I did not want to accumulate debt to start the business. So when I mentioned the blog post by Alan and Sophia about $10,000, and so that number stuck in my head, and I was like, okay, I can risk $10,000, but I'm not gonna take credit or anything like that to make this happen. So I in early January deposited took $10,000 out of one account and put it into a business account. And that was the startup funds. That was the capital. And so through that first year, in order to kind of extend my runway a little bit, I always kind of worked a part-time job or a side gig. Early on, I remember the first thing that I did, was, I guess it would have been around this time, around March Madness, with the basketball season in early 2015. The Big 12 tournament was at the Sprint Center here in Kansas City. And I had a friend who did the backstage catering. And so I did some of that during March.
Awesome.
Never want to do that again, but it was hard work, but it was kind of, I was like, yeah, I need to find something. Luckily, shortly after that, I found a paraplanning position with an established advisor who needed just some remote work, some data entry into Money Guide Pro, who wasn't quite ready to hire somebody full-time. And so I was able to do that for about a year or a year and a half or so until he was ready to hire somebody full-time locally. Kind of helped him bridge that gap. So that was really helpful in terms of income along the way, and also learning, having only been with one firm, learning how another advisor approaches financial planning. So I think that definitely helped. And then ultimately, I also had a part-time office job where I was working 2 to 3 days a week, pushing paper around. So those were just the things I needed to do to be cash flow positive every month early on. And then after that first year or so, reached the point where the business was breaking even, and was able to scale some of that back until 2017 when we started talking about starting a family. And then that's been a kind of a different chapter.
Wow. We'll get there. I love all of this. I think it's such good perspective for our listeners to hear that someone like you went from a full-time financial planning position where he probably could have been partner at some point to then going and doing part-time work while he starts a firm. How did you deal with your ego, honestly?
I don't know. I don't have an answer. I don't, I never felt like that egotistical about it, maybe. Like it was never a sense of, of course I can do this. I can do it better than someone else can. So why am I not doing it for myself? It wasn't really about doing it better than anyone else or anything. It was just wanting to try and build something that I could, build something around me that supported my life and provided flexibility as I was, starting a new life with, marriage and ultimately starting a family and all of those things. So yeah, I don't know. It just always felt like, doing the things that I needed to do to keep the train going down the track, and not compromising on going into debt for, unnecessarily.
Yeah. Brilliant. In hindsight, would you have done it this way again, that you would sacrifice some hours of the business to keep yourself cash flow positive?
Yes. I mean, I would not have, maybe I would have saved up more beforehand, but I can't imagine a scenario where I would have, I just personally would, I've never carried a credit card balance. And I'm not patting myself on the back. It's just I saw my parents have credit card debt and ultimately make the decision to get out of it and cut the cards up. And so I knew going into my adult life that I didn't want that. I had plenty of student loan debt along the way, and I didn't want to add anything to that balance. So it would have been a non-starter if I couldn't, if I would have had to, borrow money to start the business for sure.
Wow.
So Yeah,
great answer. So 2017, you and your new wife decide to start a family. Is that when you stopped doing the part-time work and you went full-time with Tandem?
No. So yeah, in toward the end of 2016, so that would have been about 2 years, 2 years in, heading into 2017, 2 years of marriage, we were kind of ready to start thinking about having kids. Didn't know when exactly, but knew that it was coming. And so I mentioned my student loans. I still had those. And I knew that I wanted to do whatever I could to get those paid off before entering that next chapter. What I told myself was I wanted to have my student loans paid off before we started saving for our daughter's education, right? I didn't want to still be paying on mine while trying to save for her. So I had also, toward the end of 2016, joined a financial counselor network through Ziders is the firm. And they do, they're a contracting company. They have a government contract to provide financial counseling for service members. And so I had joined that network in a part-time capacity and gone out on, National Guard drill weekends, that sort of thing, to provide counseling during those times. And heading into 2017, the military was undertaking a big change in their retirement program, and they needed full-time people at some of the larger installations to really push the education around that change. And so early 2017, I had already been part-time with this company. I ended up going full-time to, with the goal to pay off my student loans before baby came. Almost made it. Eleanor was born in October of 2017. And I think by early 2018, my loans were gone. So definitely got those knocked out before we cracked open her 529.
Ah, so cool. You are such a planner.
Oh, yeah.
Talk to us a bit more about Ziders and your work there. They've always done such good work. We've promoted them internally at XYPN. I can just imagine it really diversifies your understanding of the services that you're rendering and all that stuff, but just giving you more opportunities to work with clients. But tell us about it and what it's brought to you and your firm.
Yeah. So the coolest thing was kind of taking a change from the other kind of part-time side hustle type stuff I'd been doing that maybe wasn't client facing or wasn't even related to personal finance, with the office job. So, being first in the part-time, they call it on-demand financial counselor network, and then full-time gave me the opportunity to work directly with families. So, every day I sit across from a soldier and his spouse or her spouse and, talk about real issues that are important to their family. It's not full financial planning, so I'm not developing long range projections or anything like that, but it's I think they call it shorter term solution focused financial counseling. So we're really trying to give advice and guidance and changes that they can make in their life today to affect their immediate financial well-being. So it's a lot of budgeting, it's a lot of debt counseling, and also retirement, TSP, their pension, things like that, just understanding it more. So a lot more education than it is long-term planning.
Wow. And as you worked through Ziders, and I love that shorter term solution focused relationship, what was your relationship with your clients and how many were you servicing back in 2017? Because if you were working, you must not have been doing it full time at your firm.
Right. Yeah. So I always had kind of a part-time job alongside of Tandem as it was growing. And, it had Tandem had grown to a place where it was self-sustaining. It was, I remember, I broke even in the first year. I remember everyone saying, like, if you just get to year 3, that's when
Yes, yes.
that it'll work. Right. And so I made it to the year 3 and it was, self-sustaining enough, just not enough to get my student loans paid off in the time frame that I wanted. So doing the Ziders thing full time, let that happen. It did. I mean, I'd be lying if I said it didn't slow down Tandem's growth, and but I really tried to view it as a supplement to what I was doing. It was still the same objective to help families with personal finance. It was just a salaried way to be able to do that while still building my own client base.
And at what point did you go full time with Tandem?
So I'm still not.
Wow.
I still work with Ziders. I'm hoping. Well, so the student loans got paid off, right? And then Eleanor was born, and then daycare.
Oh, daycare.
Yeah. So there's always been kind of a reason to keep doing it while I'm able to balance both. But the long-term goal is obviously to do Tandem full time, and I always hesitantly say by the end of this year, but I really think by the end of this year.
And is it a client number goal? Is it a revenue goal that will make you switch?
It's more of a revenue goal. Yeah. Like I want Tandem to be able to replace kind of the salary that I left, and it's gotten closer. But since our daughter was born, has slowed down and plateaued a little bit.
Mhm.
But yeah, I still do have kind of revenue goals that I'd like to hit, and if I could do that, would feel more comfortable letting go of the full time gig, which
Yeah.
has been super flexible as needed, but it's really kind of pushed Tandem into more of a nights and weekends, late afternoons kind of a thing, rather than being able to Monday through Friday for 40 hours.
Mhm. I'm interested, do your clients know that you're working full time at Ziders?
Some do. I do mention that I work with service members,
Yeah.
especially when they're looking for times to schedule a meeting.
Mm.
I'll let them know that there are certain times that I'm up at the installation working with service members, and they're
Oh,
all, I mean, clients haven't seen that as a negative or anything.
yeah.
I don't know if they know it's full time or not, but
Mhm.
I don't really, I don't know. I've always been able to kind of fit both in, for
Yeah,
better.
yeah.
It gets tight sometimes schedule wise, but
Yeah. No, I wasn't insinuating that they wouldn't agree with it. I think it's such great work and such diverse
yeah.
work that it would only make you a better planner to them. So you're saying that nights and weekends sometimes are when you're doing client work. Talk to us about kind of how do you balance that? Do you time block? Do you have certain days that you work on Tandem? What's your schedule?
Yeah, so it's a constant fight on my calendar, and I'm not naturally the best at staying true to how I intend to block time. The biggest thing I have going for me is that I'm a natural night owl. So
Mm,
knocking things out after my wife and baby go to sleep is totally fine with me. In terms of the actual client work, meetings, I schedule around everything else. So a lot of times with the younger families that I'm working with, they prefer kind of end of the day or occasional weekend mornings. And so I've been able to accommodate that way. But yeah, a lot of my work gets done between like 8 and 2 p.m.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Or
for
8
those
p.m.
of
to 2
us,
a.m. Yeah.
yeah, those of us who are night owls can get some really good work done at night. It's when the emails slow down, the phone calls slow down, the
Oh, yeah.
moon comes out. So, how do you charge your clients? And you're working with about 20 client households. Are they all on the subscription model?
No, so the subscription model is, primarily, that's probably the bulk. But I do have a few that are on either AUM only, where we're meeting once a year for an annual review, but they don't really, you know, I think planning is always important, but maybe they didn't feel the need for it right now.
Hmm.
And then I do have a handful that are kind of ongoing hourly, where maybe we meet once or twice a year, or once every couple years, just depending on how those needs shake out, to update their plan, figure out what the next steps might be as life events happen to them.
Mm. How do you feel in terms of your marketing and sales? I know that can oftentimes be some of our members' weak points, that they feel like either they're not good at selling themselves or they're not good at marketing themselves. Have you struggled with either of those over the years?
Yeah, I'm one of those people.
Oh, you are. Tell us more.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah. So I've never. I hear of things that work for other people, and I try some of them myself. And I don't always. I think the most important thing is probably deciding what the thing is you're going to do and doing it consistently for long enough to see results. And that's where I find fault in myself. So sticking through it, to reap the reward, I guess, is the problem I have.
Mm,
And some of that is just balancing family and everything else, and the work. It's a struggle to find time to commit to consistently marketing. I've tried a few things with Arlene,
mhm.
who's a business coach within the network, and so she's helping me with a lot of that. She probably gets frustrated with me, but we're working on it. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I have people in my mastermind group and other people that locally that I've talked to who have success with some different things. I have not yet found the one thing that I can truly embrace.
Mm,
in terms of a marketing strategy. I've relied primarily on online search through NAPFA or XY Planning or CFP Board or FPA or Fee Only Network or any of those guys, and word of mouth and referrals.
Wow.
From both clients and other local planners. And my involvement in FPA locally, I think, has gone a long way for that. So I've served on the board of our local chapter for pretty much the entire time, since 2014. I was first the Next Gen director for 2 or 3 years, and then treasurer, and this year I am president-elect.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
No, thanks. Yeah. So it's been a great way as a solopreneur to plug into the bigger kind of group network locally and get to know some of the other firms in town. And even just to ask, to learn how they're doing things, to see what they're struggling with, and to, there are areas where, I have the answer, like, with student loans or different things that I'm seeing more of than some other traditional firms might be seeing. So I can, it's a two-way street for sure, but I've definitely learned from that group, and occasionally, there's a situation where I run into somebody who's a better fit for them, or they run into somebody they want to refer my way. So that's been a big help.
Wow, that's awesome, and I really commend you on leaning into the industry networking opportunities. We talked last episode with Martha that it's the term networking kind of gets a weird feeling sometimes because it just feels cliche, but really for someone like you who started in this industry young, you've leveraged a huge amount of your community members over these years. And you referenced your mastermind group, and I do want to give them a shout out and give you an opportunity to tell the listeners about the role that group has played in your experience here, because I just know the power of the network, and I've seen it happen over and over, and I'm interested to hear from you. How have you continued to leverage it, and what role has that mastermind group played in your success?
Yeah, so it's been a really good balance of personal friendships and support, emotionally and as entrepreneurs, but then also just really, really smart, sharp planners. In my group, I feel very lucky, where if any of us have a question about a financial planning topic, one of the other 8 has experienced something with it before. So we can really lean on each other to be really a, kind of a CFP brain trust, but then also, the personal friendships and support as well.
And you meet weekly, and you've met weekly for a number of years.
Yeah, every Tuesday morning. We got a Zoom call, and we added our 9th member this past year, and so we officially have the Brady Bunch, grid in Zoom, where we have a full 9. So yeah, it's been awesome. And we had our first in-person retreat last year in Colorado, where some of us had met some of the others in person at conferences and things, but all of us had never been in the same place at the same time. So that was really awesome to get to see everybody in person. We just had a big Airbnb where we all stayed for a few days, and we kind of blocked out periods of time when each person would be kind of on the hot seat, and then we also kind of tackled some issues as a group. So it was a really, really great time, and I'd encourage any other mastermind group to try and get together in person, because it changes things. I mean, once you've met somebody in person, it adds another level.
Yeah. Oh, I get goosebumps just hearing that. That sounds like such an incredible experience. I know some other mastermind groups have actually used XYPN Live as an opportunity to get an Airbnb together and kind of collaborate, whether they be a team or a mastermind group. I know folks have done that. I'm wondering, over those years, are you feeling like you've established a structure with this group, or is it very much just kind of Tuesday mornings is, you're drinking coffee together and talking, or is there a real framework to how you run your meetings?
Yeah, I mean, it's not so strict that if somebody has something that they're coming in needing help with, that they can't ask for it. Usually the first 10 to 15 minutes of the call is open for issues, like if someone's got something going on. But we do map out at the beginning of the quarter what each week is what the topic's going to be. So it is somewhat structured in that we know broadly speaking, what's going to be discussed. Like this morning, we had a Google Analytics expert, so to speak. Actually, one of our members' clients had a lot of experience in his professional career with Google Analytics, so came in and kind of did a slide deck presentation for us about what to be looking for and how to use that tool to help run our marketing funnel and make sure that we're tracking our marketing process the right way. So that was really cool. But then other meetings will be completely more based on soft skills. We've read books together where we'll get together and talk about different chapters. We did I think we did George Kinder's book last year. We've also done the E-Myth, I think, before that. So yeah, it's good to have. I think it's good to have some structure. I've been in some groups where there's no structure, and I don't think that works that well. But it's, again, not so strict that we can't get help with the thing that we might need. And we've got a Slack channel that's like blowing up with stuff all the time.
Wow. That's inspiring. I hope that all of our listeners who are either engaged or thinking about engaging in a mastermind group use some of those ideas to be able to really make their time worth it. Do you feel any competition with your study group members, or have you over the years? This is something we hear a lot about. Not a lot. I believe a lot of our members have the abundance mentality, but I think it's really easy when you're starting out to consider that advisor down the road less of a center of influence and much more of a threat. Could you shine some light on that?
Sure. So my mastermind group in particular is geographically diverse and otherwise diverse. We're in California and DC and one of the Dakotas. Sorry, Ben.
And, North Dakota.
North Dakota, yeah. And Texas and Missouri for me. So we're all over the place. So there's not really any direct competition there, and there wouldn't be even if we were all in the same town.
Yeah.
The people that I network with locally, there's some other XYPN members locally that I meet with pretty regularly, weekly or at least every few months, to get together for coffee or whatever. And there's never been a sense of competition in terms of like not wanting to share. I've always been, and everyone that I've really networked with is always super open and wanting to learn from each other and share best practices. And I mean, we're all trying to figure it out, and there are more than enough young families going around that need the help that we provide.
Totally. And is that your niche, young families just like you?
In general, if I if I had to pick one, I don't know how well defined it is. Again, with the marketing that I don't really do, but it has kind of happened. The people that I attract are usually in their mid to late, early to mid 30s, are usually married, usually have a kid on the way or maybe a toddler. So I mean, it's just kind of happened naturally. For whatever I've been doing has kind of attracted those types of people, which I enjoy working with for sure.
Yeah. You're so clearly an entrepreneur and have had that as your why. But I'm wondering, you alluded to wanting to work with folks like you back when you were at your first position. But do you have a mission statement? Do you have a real North Star of why you do this work?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure I had one written out, ready to go back in 2015. Anymore, kind of what I tell myself or what's in my head is just that I wanted a profession where I could spend my working hours helping to make a positive impact in families' lives, and with and along the way be able to provide the same thing for my own family. So financial planning is the perfect intersection for me of wanting to help other people do the best they can do with their resources, and then also be able to support my family in the best way possible. Yeah.
You were quite young when you joined XYPN. I know so because we were right around the same age when you joined XY. And our average member age is 40, and we're younger than that.
Okay.
I'm wondering, you had a really good experience in the industry before you launched your firm. But what kind of recommendations do you have for folks that maybe find themselves on the younger side? How did you communicate that to clients? How did you get the respect you needed? But also, how did you get over the imposter syndrome?
I don't, yeah. That's day to day. The imposter syndrome, that doesn't go away. And I think, even hearing Carl Richards talk about it, that's not something that ends. It's something you acknowledge and respect and deal with in a positive way. But yeah, joining, if I hadn't had the experience that I had right out of college, if I hadn't joined the firm that I did and worked under the people that I did, I would not have been ready to go out on my own. There were a few people I know early on in the network who were maybe, fresh out of college, and I don't know how they fared, but I know that I would not have fared well. So I have always told people who are thinking about going out on their own, who maybe don't have any experience yet or have very little, to try and find an intermediate step where they can go and learn from somebody. And it's possible to start your own business, but it's harder to know how to sit across from somebody and talk about the intimate details of their financial life and personal life. So that is the experience that you've got to have one way or another if you're going to be a financial planner. If you're just talking investments or portfolios or the numbers of the day, you can get by with book knowledge. But if I hadn't had the experience with families, with clients that I had with that firm, that's the piece that you can't replace with anything else. So in terms of how to get, the book knowledge and the certifications and the CFP and all of that does give you some credibility when you're young in working with older individuals. That definitely helps. But at the end of the day, you have to form a trusted relationship. And that just comes down to listening and being empathetic and not being too prescriptive, I guess. There's no one right way to do something, and I say that every day to clients. It's more important what your objective is and what's a way that works for you that we can get there, rather than you need to max out this contribution and you need to do this other thing over here. If you throw, you have to meet people where they are, and that's one thing that I really learned through the financial counseling through Ziders as well. That's really helped, is that sometimes you have to measure your advice to be actionable. If you throw everything at somebody all at once, they may get overwhelmed or not accomplish any of it. And we've all experienced, long client to-do lists that we've sent out, and we're wondering why the clients aren't moving on any of it. Maybe it's because we threw too much of them too quickly. So it's important to listen and know what bite-sized pieces, what steps you can ask somebody to take that leads them down the path toward where they're trying to get.
Wow.
I don't know if that answered your exact question, but
that totally does. And more. And I think our listeners are going to really appreciate that perspective. If you can believe it, we are rounding out this hour, Tyler. I think you and I could probably talk for 6 more hours, but what piece of advice would you give yourself in hindsight, going back to maybe even just right post-college, about how to do this and how to get up the courage to do it?
Yeah. I think it's a pro and a con. It's one thing to research something and try and, like I mentioned, know where you're going to land before you jump, but sometimes you just have to do it and you're going to learn as you go. One piece of advice that I got from my mentor, my first boss, was that you can only take clients as far as you've gone yourself. You can't.
Wow.
So it's important to embrace life and changes as they come, because it's going to give you experience that you might need to help counsel a client through something similar. For example, I couldn't have helped, told a client to stop racking up debt if I had been taking out a whole bunch of debt to build the firm. I mean, not to judge anyone else who's gone that route. It's but for me personally, if that was the conviction that I was going to have and then try and convey to clients, I needed to do that myself as well. So I guess just, that you've got to embrace life's changes, and you can only take a client or a family as far as you've also got yourself.
Wow. Tyler, this was such an eye-opening and wonderful interview and conversation. Thank you so much for your work you're doing both with Ziders, your own clients, what you've done within XYPN as a founding member. Thank you for believing in our community early on. Thank you so much for sharing your sage advice. I just think that this is going to be such a valuable conversation. I've really appreciated getting to know you, Tyler, and thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maddie.
Avocado toast, selfies, a mountain of student loan debt. Gen Y is anything but traditional, and with over 75 million people, it's a population you don't want to ignore. Learn more about how to serve this unique population in our guide called Attract and Profitably Serve Millennial Clients in Your RIA. Discover 3 key ways to tap into the millennial market and 6 things that they want from their financial advisor. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/millennials for your free copy. Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes, and finally, to find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You are not alone, and you are not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm, and that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.